quantitative research. An example of quantitative research is a survey. So a survey, a questionnaire, if you will, is a type of quantitative research. These can be implemented in a number of ways. So, for example, the survey could be what's known as a mall intercept. So a mall intercept survey. So what's a mall intercept survey? So have you ever gone to King's Plaza? And somebody is walking around with a clipboard and they come up to you and say, could I ask you a couple of questions? That's an example of mall intercept, literally mall intercept. So you try to get participants at a mall to complete a questionnaire. The survey can be done by phone. You ever get somebody to call you on the phone, want you to complete a survey? So it can be done by phone, it can be done by the mail. So they can send it to you in the mail. It could be done on the internet. So it could be mall intercept, it could be phone, it could be through the mail, it could be done on the internet. So a lot of surveys nowadays are done online. One of the advantages of that is that it's perceived as being anonymous and confidential. So you don't get any reaction from the interviewer. So for example, if somebody came up to you in King's Plaza and they asked you, they said, we're doing a survey regarding beverages and we want to ask you some questions about your consumption of alcohol. And so if they ask you each week, how many shots of tequila do you have? So they ask you 2, 3, 4, 5, more than 10, 15. So now, one of the concerns is that people are not going to, they're not going to be honest. So even though we know you did 15 shots of tequila, you might feel a little uncomfortable telling that to the researcher. Maybe the researcher's judging me. With an online survey, that's certainly an advantage, that people feel more comfortable giving the true response. Now, when we develop a questionnaire, again, we're just going to try and get a sample, but this time we're trying to get approximately 1,500 respondents. So in the US, in most categories, 1,500 respondents is enough to have something that's statistically significant. So what do I mean by statistically significant? Well, remember before we said, well, we only have 12 people in our focus group for our qualitative research. So then I said, well, we do 2 in each city, so now we have 48. Is that helpful to us? Yes, it's tremendously helpful to us in our research. We're going to get a lot of insightful feedback from the consumers. However, the sample size we said is small. 48 people, that's not a lot. It's very helpful to us. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. It's still, a focus group is a very popular form of market research, and it's very meaningful, very relevant. It's going to help us make business decisions, but the sample size is small. So what do we use that qualitative research for? We use that to inform the quantitative research. So all those things that we find out So when I ask people what's their favorite beverage, so in a focus group, so if we have a conversation, what's your favorite beverage? So Genesis says orange juice. Orange juice. Maria says water. Maggie says iced tea. Anybody want to own up to some vodka? Yeah. So at the end, what do I have? I have a list of different beverages. All right, that's helpful. So we have vodka, we have tequila, we have rum, we have milk, we have orange juice, we have water, we have iced tea. So we have all these lists of beverages. Then what we're going to do is in our questionnaire, in our survey, then we're going to ask people to choose their favorite beverage. But now, we're going to have 1,500 respondents. We could crunch that number. You know what I mean by crunch? In other words, we could calculate the number. But I'm telling you on my experience in doing market research that 1,500 typically is enough. Okay? Between 1,000 and 1,500 is enough respondents to have something that's statistically significant. That we could then say, after doing some data analysis, that 85% said that orange juice, Abisola, orange juice is their favorite beverage. Right, Echo? Orange juice is their favorite beverage. Now, when we develop the questionnaire, we have to write the question, and we also need to provide the answer. So, the choices, when you say, what do you mean the answer? So in other words, the questions can be either closed-ended or open-ended. Open-ended questions mean that they fill in the blank. You say, what is your favorite beverage? And then they put in milk or orange juice or tequila. But that presents some problems for us in terms of the coding. Because remember, now we're going to have 1,500 respondents. At the end, what we need to be able to do is analyze. We need to be able to count up the responses. Now, with a closed-ended question, where we list the responses, right? We list the choices. So we say, what is your favorite beverage? Check one of the following. And then we put milk, orange juice, tequila, vodka, rum, right? Water, wine, beer. Then we're able to code those responses. So we assign a number to each one of those choices. Those we could, in the software that we use, like SPSS, we could very easily have that tabulated. With open-ended questions, we need to go in there. The computer can't really evaluate that. We have to look, and it's subjective. Well, if they said chocolate milk, is that a different response than just milk? Or how should we count that? Or what if they, we can't read what they wrote? I mean, look, could you imagine this? Who could read my handwriting? Can you imagine if I was filling this out? So you want people to be able to check so that we could code it and then easily tabulate the responses. So we're going to talk about the scales that we use, which has to do with the responses. But before we do, when we're writing the questions, we need to be aware that there's some issues about how those questions are written. Some watch-outs. So you're all going to have to develop a questionnaire by the end of the semester. So, some watch-outs. One of them is that the question that we ask is what's called double-barreled. So we want to make sure that the question that we ask is not double-barreled. What's a double-barreled question? Two questions in one. So, what would be an example of two questions in one?
you like ice cream and chocolate?
Do you like ice cream and chocolate?
Any if so question, like if you like, do you like this? If so, no, 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 no.
If so, what's the rest of it? The da-da-da-da part.
I don't know. I can't think. It's
Okay, so I'm thinking like, so in other words, do you like ice cream and sports cars?
Yes. To ice cream?
So do you like ice cream and sports cars? So in other words, and then it's a nominal scale question, which is yes or no. So now the issue about the double barrel is which question do you respond to? Do you like ice cream and sports cars? Well, I like ice cream, but I don't like sports cars. Or that's a double barrel question. Yeah, I've seen that so many times. It's unbelievable. It's kind of a very common mistake.
So if the question is like, do you like ice cream? If so, which flavor? That's
yeah,
what
like
I-
that. There we go.
Well, so if which flavor, I would just have that as a different question.
So that's not considered double barrel.
No, that wouldn't be double barrel.
Okay.
So, do you like ice cream? You still have the yes/no response, and then, if so, then which flavor? That's a different part of the question. But you see, the dilemma is with the double barrel question is the respondent doesn't know how they should answer. They're not able to answer correctly because there's two questions in one. So now, if you say, so the question is, do you like ice cream and sports cars? If you like both, then that's no problem for you. You just say yes. But what if you're like, you know something? I like Nicole, I like sports cars, but I don't really like ice cream because of the cavities potential. Then how do you respond? And if they don't respond, that's a problem too. So a non-response is a big problem. If they don't answer a question, that's a big problem for us.
False the response?
So that's a question issue.
Is it a problem too if they put both yes and no because they can't clearly explain it?
Yep, absolutely. So we didn't get something that was meaningful. So Nicole is saying now, either one issue is they don't respond, which we're just wasting our time, or another bit of useless information is what if they click yes and no? So what do I do with that?
Or they are even forced to say yes,
Right.
just because they want to put an answer in that question. And what they really want, what they really mean is a no or a yes and a no. But because they were not given that opportunity to either put a yes or no, but that's not really the answer.
Right. So for a nominal scale, you're forcing them to either say yes or no. Which maybe it's somewhere in between. You say, do you like ice cream? Well, I've eaten ice cream, somebody might say. I've eaten ice cream. Do I like it? Well, I mean, if I had a choice, I would choose blueberries or mango. Not me. I mean, I would definitely go with ice cream all the way, definitely. Cold Stone Creamery, yeah. So, but that's the problem. We'll talk about that in a minute, about nominal scale. How we assign these descriptors, but we don't have any level of intensity. It doesn't say, so you like ice cream, it doesn't say how much you like ice cream. That's one of the drawbacks of using a nominal scale. So they're forced to give a response, either yes or no. There's no in-between for them. Another issue with the questions is that you use some sort of technical jargon, or you don't have a shared vocabulary. So technical jargon means that you're using terms in the research that the participants are really not familiar with. As an industry expert, as a researcher, we know what those terms mean. We know what gigabytes mean. We know what pixels mean. Well, some of us, I don't know, some of you, hello? So, megahertz, the speed of your processor and your laptop and so forth, maybe that's not something that the participants understand. You need to make sure that you have a shared vocabulary, that you're not using technical jargon that the participants are not going to understand. That maybe everybody in your company knows what that means, but the consumers don't understand those terms. Now, if you're using a shared vocabulary, that's fine. If everybody knows what that means, everybody understands what gigabytes are, then that's fine. But that could be a problem if you include that technical jargon. What else? What could be some other issues?
Loaded questions.
Yes, loaded questions. So the question is loaded or leading. So what if I said to Michelle, I said, most intelligent Americans believe that Barack Obama has a terrific foreign policy. Wouldn't you agree?
That's a long question.
So, I just told you that most Americans, of course those that are intelligent, believe that Barack Obama's policy is terrific, and then I ask you for your opinion. Well, that's like what Genesis is saying, really. That's a loaded question. That's a leading question. So, it's likely, so you're more likely to say, well, I agree too, because I'm also an intelligent American, right? I've seen these so many times. It's just, so you guys be aware.
A loaded question is also a bias wording question.
Yeah, I would say that would be, I would interpret it that way. That it's a type of bias. You're leading them. Another issue is something that's not answerable. So you ask a question. So you ask a question to which the participant doesn't have the answer. So what would be an example of that? So if I asked you, how much did you spend last month on alcohol? You probably don't remember. But let's say I asked you, how much did you spend for your iPhone 6? You probably would remember that. So if I asked that on a questionnaire, I said, how much did you spend for your new smartphone? You probably would remember. If I said, was it 100, 200, 300, 500, 600? You would remember. But if I said, how much did you spend last on orange juice, then what are they going to say? So if I put $5, $10, $20, like you're just guessing. If I said, how much did you spend on your new laptop? That's something that you would remember. You might remember, some more expensive items. Sometimes those that are even frequently consumed, you wouldn't really know. Like that's not something that you're tracking, that you would know. Well, you're really just guessing. How much do you spend on soda per month? I mean, who knows? I mean, let's see. So you're going to start figuring out, let's say I drink like 2 Pepsi a day, and I don't drink them on the weekend, so that's 2, and that's 10 a week, at an average of, let's say, $2 each. So, I mean, people are not going to know how much they spend on soda.
What about something like gas? Would it fall into that category?
It might be.
Or it's like a weird one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Sometimes that might be something that sticks with people because they're like, you hear people say, every time I fill up, it costs me $50. So you might remember, but also it could be one of those things that people may not know, people may not remember. So we have to be careful that we're not forcing them, like Bassell is saying, to give an answer, because then they could just be guessing. We should be thinking that through and anticipating whether or not it's reasonable to think that they would have the answer to that question. And then take that into consideration when we're analyzing the data. Because they might just be like, I don't know, $100 a month. maybe some people might know that. So maybe some people are keeping a budget and they know, like they say I budget $100 a month for gas or $200 a month for groceries. Like that's another thing. You might say, how much do you spend on groceries per month? Now if somebody's keeping a budget, they say, I know I'm budgeted $300 a month for that. But some people may not. So it's our responsibility as a researcher to determine whether or not the question is something that the participant can answer. All right, we got 3 more hours, so we're on track.
Just got started,
That's right. Questions? No questions?
Non-response is what? Is it the same thing?
So non-response, so we ask a question and we don't get a response. So, oh, you're saying is that different than not answerable?
Yes.
What do you think? No response versus not answerable.
Is it the same?
Same thing.
The way they can answer, they just don't want to.
So a slight differentiation there, right? Distinction is, one is they can't answer it, the other one is they don't answer it. So no response, why they don't answer it? Maybe they feel it's too personal. You might ask them about their income. Maybe they don't want to share that information. Or some people are sensitive about their age. I don't have any problem with anybody knowing my age. Everybody knows I'm 30. So,
30?
30.
20.
20? No. 20, I'm not 20. So, those are some issues with the questions. But then, we need to provide the answers to those questions. We have to provide the choices. Because we don't want to have all those open-ended questions where we have to go in and code those manually. If we ask them what flavor ice cream, we should have already had enough research to determine which flavors are the most popular. And ask, and list those as choices. And then we could have, I think it's a good idea though, to have one of the choices as other. And have them fill that in. But what we would expect, what we should expect is that's going to be rare that somebody would fill that in. But it's good to capture that because maybe there's something that we didn't get out of the secondary research, something that we didn't get out of our primary qualitative research. Maybe that's a flavor that is not on our radar screen that we weren't considering before. So it's good to ask that, but when we ask them what's their favorite flavor, we should already know what the most popular flavors are. And so this shouldn't cause us any headaches in terms of doing the coding and the data analysis. So it's good to put that there. Probably most of the time, if we did our research correct, we're not going to get a lot of others.
What happens if like pretty much all of them turn out to be others?
Then we did something wrong, right? We didn't, all the pre-work with our qualitative research, whether it's from primary or secondary sources, something went wrong there. Now, if it turns out that that's the case, we're going to have a fill in the blank there, so they can put whatever their flavor is. But, so it's not just other, because that's just another closed-ended choice. So that would really be problematic if they said, if we listed vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, mango, and cappuccino, and then 89% said other. Yes, I would be concerned.
Is that a double barrel question because you have to check the other plus write it?
No.
No.
No, that's just giving them a chance to fill in their response, to enter their, to give clarification.
Is there?
So they don't have to answer 2 questions. Double barreled is you're asking them to answer 2 questions. which they can't possibly do. You're asking them 2 questions in one.
Is there like a certain amount of responses you should have for each question?
A certain amount of response issues.
Like the choices, I mean, certain amount of choices.
Oh, how many choices? How many flavors should you ask them? Half a dozen. Okay.
So the more choices, the better.
Well, it depends on the category. I would say half a dozen should be enough in most categories. If for some reason the market is very fragmented in terms of, let's say, the popularity of a particular flavor, then you could have 10 choices or 12, but we need to be sensitive to the fact that it's not too long. So, scales. That has to do with the answers. So we could use a nominal scale, which is usually a yes or no response. These are known as descriptors. So the response is the label. It's a descriptor. So the response is either yes or no. Those are both descriptors. It's helpful to ask nominal scale questions. The problem is that there's no level of intensity. So if we ask, do you like ice cream? Yes or no? All right, so a lot of people say yes. That's interesting to know, because 89% could have said no, and then we would start to cry, right? But there's no level of intensity. It doesn't tell us how much they like ice cream or how much they don't like ice cream. But it's common to ask nominal scale questions. We could ask questions about your level of education, and then you would check your minimum level of education: high school, associates, bachelor's, graduate, school, professional. Marital status would be another example of a nominal scale question. Single, married, widow. Gender would be a nominal scale. So it's common to ask some nominal scale questions, but we realize that there's some limitations. So ordinal scale An ordinal scale gives us some level of intensity. So, for example, we could use what's called a 5-point Likert scale. Likert, L-I-K-E-R-T. Why is it called Likert? That's the name of the researcher. So he developed this scale. It's a 5-point scale.
Disagree. Strongly disagree.
So you ask them, so the question is, indicate to what extent you agree with this statement. what's going to be our question? I like ice cream. I like ice cream. So the statement is, I like ice cream. And we say, indicate to what extent do you agree with this statement? Either strongly agree, agree, somewhat agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Oh, that's a lot better than the nominal scale question. Do you like ice cream? Yes or no? Okay. Now, we have that level of intensity. That's a key feature of the ordinal scale. You see the difference? How this is so much more insightful when we're designing our questionnaire. The information that we're going to get back is going to be a lot more meaningful. Now we know to what extent they like ice cream. And we could actually be able to say, once we're done with our data analysis, that 72% say they strongly agree with the statement, I like ice cream. What do we do with this research? Well, this is going to help us make decisions about introducing a new product, for example, but it's also going to help us get distribution at retail, for example. So when we want to get our product in the store at Target and Walmart, why would they carry our product? They want to see the research that says 72% said they like mango flavored ice cream. When you go to them and say, look, we came up with a new flavor, mango. Okay, well, you want me to take out chocolate and put mango? You need to have the research to support that. It's got to be fact-based decisions. So it's not just we're trying to convince ourselves. We're manufacturing a product, we have to be able to sell it. We have to get distribution. So we want Walmart to carry our product. Why would they carry our product? Because of the research. That's why research is so important. It's going to minimize the risk of our business decisions and also help our business partners, like our retail partners, also make decisions. Everybody wants to sell more ice cream, right? Good, Michelle?
Is the research backed by anything aside from facts? Because, like, for example, if you come to the distributor and you say, oh, here, 72% love it and the rest are okay with it, how are they to trust you? Like, how do you research?
When you say anything behind it.
Because to them it's secondary, correct? Since we're the primary holders, so what makes that difference different with the disadvantages from their
Different from secondary?
So, let's say when we're looking to research for things, like we look at the secondary information, but sometimes that could be falsified, so we shouldn't trust it 100%.
Okay, so one of the factors that sort of like makes it self-regulating, if you will, is that if we sell them mango ice cream and consumers don't buy it, we're going to have to take that product back. So our company and our retail partner should have the same objective, which is what I was suggesting. We all want to sell more ice cream. So there's no advantage to us to try and convince them to carry mango when chocolate is a better flavor, a better selling flavor. So if they take in mango and sell, instead of 50,000 units, they sell 10,000 units. So let's say we're selling 50,000 units of chocolate, and then we convince them to carry mango. Now we're, instead of selling 50,000 cartons of ice cream, we're only selling 5,000. Our sales went down. We lost a lot of money. So that's why I use the term partnership. It should be a win-win for us as a manufacturer and also for our retail partners and our distributors. So if we give them the wrong advice, we lose too. So they lost some sales, but we also lost. We lost a lot more than them, because that ice cream they're going to send back to us. Either they're going to send it back to us. Very often, retailers do send back product, and it's, well, ice cream is certainly problematic, but even other products, the packaging is torn, the products are broken, it's a disaster. So what happens is usually manufacturers give the companies markdown money. That means, okay, mango isn't selling, so we're going to give you money so that you could sell it 50% off. Manufacturers sponsor that. Very often you see that in stores and you say, oh wow, 50% off, 80% off. Yeah, because they're trying to clear out that merchandise, and it's usually not the retailers that are funding that. It's the manufacturer. They realize that either they're going to give the money to clear the product out at retail, or they're going to send it back. So there's no advantage for the manufacturer to give false information, right? To persuade them to do something, because they're going to lose, but we would lose as a company as well.
Excuse me. Is it also possible for the retailer to say, I'm no longer doing business with you?
Yep, absolutely. So if that happens, if you give them false research, you convince them to do something that costs them money, they'll kick you off their planogram, kick you off their shelf. Also, if you get them to promote your product and then you don't have the inventory to ship to them, that's another reason why they might kick you off their shelf. So you get them to promote your product and they run it in their flyer and they advertise the product, and you were supposed to ship them 100,000 units and then you don't, then what happens? Well, how many times, that's called running a dry ad. So when you run an ad and then there's no inventory in the store, that's called running a dry ad. Well, that could only happen once. And then, like Bassell said, then you're done. Then they're going to not want to do business with you. Because they spend a lot of money promoting the product and then they didn't get any sales. All right, so we're almost done. Well, I could go on for hours yet. Hours! All right. So that's an ordinal scale. An interval scale, which is even more specific, is if we use a scale from 1 to 10. So how much, indicate how much you like ice cream on a scale of 1 to 10. So this is even more specific than I strongly agree. And importantly, this is very important, that even the ordinal scale doesn't have this, is that there's what we call distance. Distance. This is not, this response here, this is just coding. This is not the scale. This is just coding. We could show this to the respondents. This could be on the questionnaire, but it doesn't need to be. This is really for us. They see this. If we show them this, that's okay. Sometimes researchers have that on the questionnaire. It doesn't matter. It's not bad if that's seen by them, but this is how we code their response. They choose this. What we see when we go into the data set is this number. That's what we tabulate using this number. That's why we code it, so that we could count up the number of 5s, the number of 4s, the number of 3s. But there's no relationship between this 5 and this 4. This is not 20% less. So how much do you like ice cream? Well, these people, right, like it 20% less. No, that's not true. This is just coding, not a scale. This is a scale. And there is distance here. So this answer is 20% less. So if you're talking about how much you like ice cream, so the people who choose 8 say that they like ice cream 20% less than those people who chose 10. Now we're really getting precise input. Now we're getting something that's meaningful. Because now we know how much they like ice cream and what percentage of the people say they like ice cream this much, or this much, or this much. So we might expect a lot of the responses to be here. hopefully. If we get 89% of the people said 2 and 3, then instead of selling ice cream, we might think about selling chocolate miniatures. Or shampoo! Shampoo, that's another alternative. Yeah, if the ice cream thing doesn't work, shampoo. I could talk for hours about that. Questions?
What's the ideal number of questions per person?
15 is reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could try to ask more. Once you start developing your questionnaire, there's so many things so many things you want to find out. You want to ask 20, 30 questions. Realistically, you got to think about whether or not people are going to invest the time to complete the questionnaire, whether or not they're going to have the attention span to answer that many questions. But it also depends on how complex the questions are. Maybe the questions are very simple and straightforward and they could just go through it really quickly. So maybe 20 questions, 20 easy questions is something that they would tolerate. Other questions that require a lot of thought or analysis would have to be fewer. But if it's questions like this about what flavor ice cream and things like that, you could probably get them to go through, 20 questions. Some of them are going to be about their demographics, because one of the important things that we need to be able to do is identify segments. And those segments have got to be reachable. So it's not enough to find out that 89% of the people like ice cream. We've got to find out who these people are. What is their age? What is their occupation? Right? We need to be able to reach them. Because if they like ice cream, we don't want to just advertise to everybody. We want to advertise to those people that like ice cream. Those are our heavy users. Now we need to decide whether or not we're going to spend money to try and get the non-adopters, the non-users, to eat ice cream. Now maybe one of the things that we found out in our research is, so remember I said we don't want to just talk to those people that eat ice cream, or those people that cook, but we want to talk to those people who don't eat ice cream. Or those people don't cook. And maybe we could find out that the reason they don't eat ice cream is because there's no low-calorie option. So you mean all this time you didn't eat ice cream because there was no low-calorie version? So now we could introduce a low-calorie ice cream and sell 50 million cartons a year, all because of market research. You see, that's something that we could find out in market research. So you don't buy ice cream. Why? I like ice cream. Maybe they say I like ice cream. And then we get excited, right? Like with the brand awareness. See, you got to keep probing and asking the right question. So you like ice cream, that's great. But then you find out they don't buy ice cream. You don't buy ice cream. You said you liked it. 89% said they like ice cream. But you don't buy ice cream? We need to find out why. Why they don't eat ice cream.
Could you be specific? Okay, if you're doing a questionnaire based on ice cream, a particular flavor, let's say chocolate, could you be as specific to the point where you say, please select the type of ice cream or ice cream flavor, and then you put as the options chocolate, then you put low-calorie chocolate, then you put gluten-free chocolate, then you
absolutely.
put fat-free chocolate.
So we need to find out the purchase intent. We need to find out what factors influence their decision. So why do they purchase a particular product? So one of the questions that we're going to ask is, why do you eat ice cream? And then we should know from our research, right, from our qualitative research, our secondary research, that what those responses are. And we could have another, maybe there's something that we missed, but why do you eat ice cream? It tastes good, it makes me feel good, blah, 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 whatever the responses are, and then ask the question, why don't you eat ice cream? So maybe somebody said in the focus group that they're worried about their weight, or they want a low-calorie option. That's what we're going to check in our questionnaire. We'll say that one of the reasons they don't eat ice cream is because they're concerned about calories, they're concerned about their health, they're concerned about sugar, So low calorie is one option, sugar free is another option. Those are all those things we're gonna,
Lactate.
right, could be, exactly. Lactose could be an issue. So another group of questions again is, why do you purchase the product? So we need to understand the purchase motivation. Why do people purchase the product? That's very important. That's gonna help us develop our advertising. And for the non-users, why don't they purchase the product? And then maybe there's an opportunity to convert them to users. So those are the kind of things you should include in your questionnaire that you're going to develop this semester. Right, Abisola? Fun times! So you're going to develop a questionnaire. You're going to be able to ask these questions. What is their purchase motivation? Why do they buy the product? But then you got to have the answers too. Why don't they buy the product? How likely are they to buy the product? Questions? Best students ever?